Hello and welcome back to Russ Plays Games. My name is Russ, and as you can see, we're sitting in front of my paint station. I have a couple of different figures that I'm going to be painting today. To kind of show it off, this was the figure that we painted last time. Just have a few things that I need to, do on her, but for the most part, she's pretty much done. So, this is Tristan from Sword and Sorcery, Immortal Souls, and I'm painting his Ghost Soul form. And so what I'm going to do today, I painted Mist's Ghost Soul form, and what I ended up doing was I just took Drakenhof Nightshade, and I threw it onto the miniature, and then I took a little bit of white paint and just kind of dry brushed it to see how it would look. And it looked horrible because the model itself was so shiny that it just kind of like the shade just kind of pooled in certain places and it really didn't look good. So what we're going to do is so what I did was I took this ultra blue color, okay, and I painted one single layer over the whole thing so that you can see all the different stuff, okay? And now what we're going to do is we're going to take the Drakenhof Nightshade and we're going to go ahead and shade the whole miniature now, okay? Because what we're doing is now we're building up a layer of the shade, which is going to darken up this blue, okay? And then once that dries, and in the meantime we'll do a little bit of something else, but while we're waiting for this to dry, we'll move on to a different figure. But basically what we're doing now is we are attempting to build up a little bit of sort of recesses on the miniature itself, okay? Because when we come back to this particular character, or when we come back to shade it, or to highlight it, we're going to highlight it two ways, okay? We're going to highlight it a little bit with first with the bright blue, and then we're going to highlight it with white, okay? And that should lighten it up enough that when we sit down to go over everything, it should like really brighten up a lot of it to the point where we're going to notice a lot of more of the stuff here come out, and it's going to look really good. Okay. So I apologize for the other miniature paint tutorial that I just did. I was trying to get a brand new, a setup to work. It's not working, so I'm going to have to figure out what I'm doing wrong and what I need to do right. But until then, I'm just going to continue using this setup. Okay. It's important when you're doing this to get all of the different areas in your shade. Okay. I've been trying for years to get ethereal glows on different things, and sometimes I just haven't achieved the right effect, but I think this might just work, but we'll see. Okay. So I think it's probably good. I'll just let that guy dry. Okay, now we'll just let him dry, and then we'll come back to him. Alright. So now, this next part. So, this is what's known as a tyrant lizard. Okay, this is out of the Sword and Sorcery Ancient Chronicles base set. Okay, and this is what he looks like normally. This is how I painted his little brother. Okay, and so I'm going to show you now the technique that I did for doing that. Basically, what it is, okay, is I realized that I could use a color like ultramarine blue as a base coat rather than just doing black, because if I paint normal black, okay, and then I paint the ultramarine blue over it, you won't see it. It's too dark, okay, and this is kind of a transparent color. So what we want to do is we take our ultramarine blue, okay, and we're going to paint it like we would any base coated color. Okay. And we're probably going to end up painting a couple of layers of this. Okay. Just because it is such a transparent color. And we want this to cover everything pretty even. Okay. We may or may not be able to get to this one before we go back. We may or may not be able to finish, kind of doing the base coat on this one before the first break and before we go back to painting the ghost soul form of Tristan. Okay. This is kind of what we're looking for. Okay. You want to make sure that you're getting this color everywhere. Okay. And it doesn't have to be 100% coverage on this first coat. We just want to make sure that we're getting it everywhere we need it. Okay, because in the second coat we can go back and we can kind of fill in a bunch of it, spots that we missed and things that we have. Because like I said, this is a very transparent color, so you're going to see a lot of the teal blue that the miniature is, the plastic of the miniature is. And so in that respect, you're going to want to make sure that you go back over it at least one more time. Okay. I'd always seen people base coat certain miniatures in certain colors, and I never really kind of thought about it until I looked at this and I thought, if these are blue, I kind of want them to be blue still, because I need to be able to identify them fairly quickly by their color. I can kind of spend some time and paint them up correctly. And we'll be seeing these tyrant lizards as we go through Quest 2 on the Sword and Sorcery LP. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this now, is because before I actually get down and start playing again, I wanted to make sure that I painted these guys up so that they didn't look horrendous. One painted and the other one not, then be like, oh yeah, right in the middle of painting, and then I decided, oh yeah, you should play. It's never a fun thing. Okay. Now, you don't necessarily have to paint this color, but if you're going to do this technique, then you're going to want a dark color. You can even use black, okay, if you want to use like a black color and you want to try to, put some other lighter colors over it, you're more than welcome to. This technique will work well for pretty much any combination of colors, but you want something, especially if you're going to do like I'm doing and do like a blue color, you definitely want to have that blue color be something extremely dark, like a navy or ultramarine blue or something like that where it's nice and dark. Okay. And like I said, if it's transparent, then you're going to need to go back over it a couple of times to make sure that you're getting complete coverage. Okay. So normally when I'm using this color, it's so dark that I have to put like 3 or 4 coats of paint on before I can actually really tell that it's on there. Okay. I think when we get done, that should pretty much be dry. So then we'll go back to Tristan real fast. I'll show you what we're going to do. So you can kind of see there on the head that we went a little bit darker than the rest of the body. And you can kind of see where, like, down here, where some of the color is still kind of poking through. And you don't want that. You want that to definitely be a lot better. Okay, so we'll clean that up in a minute. But the first thing we're going to do, okay, now that we've done our Drakenhof Nightshade layer, okay, we are going to move that guy out of the way. We're going to take the bright blue. Okay. And this is going to be sort of an aggressive dry brush. It's not going to be an overbrush, but it's going to be close. I'm going to leave a little bit more paint on there than normal. Okay, because what we want is we want to start building up blue color. You can kind of see that. Okay. And where we want to focus is, we pretty much are going to focus this all over. Okay. Because we want to build up the color, blue color, everywhere. Okay. we want to start kind of building up the different layers of the character. So we want him to start looking I want him to start to have kind of a luminous quality to him. Okay. What we're going to do is as we build up the color, okay, we want that color to start This is what I tried to do with his banner before. I tried to build up the color with some various dry brushing techniques. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but in this case it's actually working pretty well. Because again, what we're trying to do is we're trying to build up sort of a luminous quality to everything. So if you can, I don't know if you can kind of tell, but you can kind of see where the blue is starting to take over, where the brighter blue is starting to take over. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Okay, we want that brighter blue to start to take over a little bit. Okay, because what we want is we want that luminous quality. Okay, and that's why I'm saying it's going to be an aggressive dry brush, almost an overbrush. Okay. Because we do want that blue to be nice and bright when we get to that point. Okay. Now, if you had successively lighter and lighter shades, you could sit there and make those shades, progressively lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. So if you want to do that, you're more than welcome to, but I don't have a ton of shades of blue, so I'm not going to be doing that. I'm mostly just going to be kind of sticking to the typical which is going to be this bright blue and then white. And the white's going to be a much finer highlight when we get to it. Okay. And again, it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. You just need to be able to see the contrast between the paints. And it'll really stand out when we go to hit the white brush, dry brush. Okay. Probably could be a little bit more aggressive with it, but this is probably good enough. So if you can kind of see that now, you can see where that bright blue has really, really lightened a lot of that stuff up, okay? Which is what we're going for. We're going for kind of a lighter color, okay? Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to keep that bright blue close, because we'll end up using it for this guy. Okay. And already you can kind of see the effect that we are going for. I'm trying to get sort of an ethereal glow going on our guy here. If that makes sense. Okay, and then on the shield. So can you kind of see the glow effect that we're going for? Okay. So this is a very, very light dry brush. Okay, because we don't want to kill the effect. Okay. We want to enhance the effect. We don't want to kill it. Okay. I find that as the paint kind of wears down a little bit, then you have to kind of press a little bit harder with it, but you don't have to do too much. Okay. White is so powerful that you can overwhelm any effect you have just by being too aggressive with it. Okay? So be very, very careful with the white. So because I didn't do this before, it was easy for me to bring it in and use this effect, to heavily dry brush, because it didn't have a whole lot. There wasn't much there. So to be able to make it look that way, I had to kind of overbrush it almost to get the effect. Okay. But that's the effect that we're going for. We want this to look ethereal. We want the edges to look like and the more you do it, the more the effect comes out. Okay? And again, it's a ghost soul form. Okay? So we are literally just trying to create that effect. Okay? But this is what dry brushing does for us. This is the benefits of dry brushing. Because you can create many subtle effects just from dry brushing. And there we go. Okay. Didn't do too much on the back side of the flag because we don't really need to worry too much about that, but that's the actual character. Okay. And when we come back, I will have done the I will get this guy a second coat, and then we'll get ready to put him up. Okay? So I hope you'll join me in less than a second. We're back. So I went and got Mist because I wanted to show you the difference between the two. So this was the first one that I did. And what I did was, all I did was I just took the Drakenhof Nightshade, okay, and I just kind of like threw it over to try to put it in some of the recesses. And as you can see, it just kind of pooled up and splotched everywhere, okay? Whereas on Tristan here, it became a more even coat because it had something to adhere to. So it flowed into all the different cracks and crevices. And as we highlighted him and did things, and you can barely tell that I highlighted her. I mean, you can kind of see some of the white on some of the, against like some of the shade, but like where there is no shade, like on her arm and stuff, you can't really tell that there's a whole lot of white there. And so, so that's why I went for the ultra blue, okay, color as kind of a base coat, and then through the nightshade, and then did the bright blue and then the white, is because when you do it that way, you see how it just kind of builds up over layers. Okay? And so that's what we're going for when we do stuff like that. Okay? So we're looking for kind of an ethereal glow. I'm probably going to do the same thing because I have this guy. So I'm probably going to do the same thing, but I might do him in a green color instead because I have some darker greens and I have the Colia green shade, which will make it so that, it'll keep it nice and dark. So we'll do some stuff with that in a little bit. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to start with our Tyrant Lizard here. Now, on the picture, he's got kind of yellow glowing eyes, and then his tongue has kind of a reddish color. Okay? Now, this guy, I gave him red eyes. Okay? I don't know if you can kind of see that a little bit. But basically, what I did is I took the Folk Art Metallic Garnet Red here, and being extremely careful, dip the very tip of the brush in and just very carefully get down in the eye socket, get the eye. And if you're very careful, you shouldn't need to do anything else. Now, if you want to kind of highlight that up, if you want to make it look a little bit more bright, if you want it to be, a little bit more orangish, or you want something like that, you can take an orange paint and go back in and just kind of put a little dot on it, or you could even take some gold if you want to and just kind of dip it in and go and just kind of make a little dot. Okay? Now, for the tongue, we're going to do the flag red. Okay? Yeah. Make sure you get down the side of the tongue. Otherwise, it's going to look weird when he's only got like a one-dimensional tongue. Because your tongue is three-dimensional. Okay? So when we get done, that's kind of what his tongue looks like. Kind of hard to see, but basically it's that red. Okay? Now, what we're going to do, just like before, okay, with Tristan, okay, we're going to take our dry brush, okay, and we're going to take this bright blue, This is going to take a while because he's not exactly easy, but we're going to lighten him up ever so. The bright blue.
And then what we'll do is he has a little vein running up his neck, and what we'll end up doing is we'll end up going back and kind of highlighting that. But until then, we're just gonna kind of get his spines, his ridges, all of these little areas of his. Okay, so you can already see where the bright blue is lightening up that ultramarine blue. Okay, you'll notice that we didn't put any of the shade on. Okay, you shouldn't need shade with this. Okay, this is just dry brushing. Okay. Remember, you don't want to kill the dark. Okay. In the immortal words of Bob Ross, you need dark to show the light. Don't kill all your darks. Okay. So to show this off, you have to be able to show. You have to have the dark underneath to show the light. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Okay. He has little armor plates down the front of his leg. Okay. So we're going to hit those. The highlight. Now, these little spines on the back of his leg, you can either paint those white or you can do what I did before and just lighten them up. Okay? So they don't have to be white like the normal claws. You can make them a pale blue, you know, sort of like things are coming out. Okay? We're basically artificially lightening some of the skin. Okay? That's all we're doing. There's really not much else to say other than just take your time and go over everything. Okay. Make sure you get all the little ridges and all the little parts of him. Don't worry about his teeth or anything like that right now. We'll go back over that with a white here in a minute. But we want to make sure that when we're doing this, so you can kind of see how we're lightening up his face there. Okay. When you compare it to the rest of his body that hasn't been highlighted yet, you kind of go, oh, yes, I see. Okay, because again, we're just lightening everything up a little bit. Okay. I'd recommend for good contrast, not not doing the insides of the hands. Okay, because then that will make the contrast a little bit better. Okay. The contrast being the contrast between light and dark, where the light is actually hitting the spines and various parts of the tyrant lizard, and the rest of it just kind of being okay. Now, one of the other things that I did is lizards usually have a like the underside where their belly is typically has a much lighter look to it. Okay, so what I did was I took this bright blue and sort of colored in the underside, the tyrant lizard, where all of his little armor plate things would look. Where his underbelly is, that is where you want it. If that makes sense. Okay. And get it to the best of your ability. Try not to. I mean, if you screw up a little bit, it's not a big deal. But just try to get as much of it as you can. It's really not going to make much of a difference sitting on the table. Because it's not like everybody's going to pick it up and look at it and go, oh my gosh, you didn't get that one underbelly thingy there. What were you thinking? That's odd. Alrighty. one place to do a shade if you really wanted to would probably be this underside of him, because if you can kind of see, sometimes the plates don't always separate well, and so it's just easier to be able to say, here's the separation by showing off the deepness of it by using a shade, but it's not necessary. Okay. Now, any other things that I did? There's a little vein on his neck. It's pretty prominent. And so, all I did, let's just make sure to highlight that. So as you can see, there's that vein, and then there's that vein up on his neck. Okay? Now, if you wanted to, you could pretty much call him done. The exception of a couple things. Okay? And that being his claws. So, take the white here. And his teeth. Okay. this happens. I'm working. Okay. Okay. Getting the teeth on this guy's pretty tough. But then, one of the last things that we can do, if we really want to, is, again, we pull out our dry brush. Forgive my big ass arm in the way. We're going to take this blue, and then we're just going to do a final light pass dry brush, if we wish. We don't have to if we don't want to, but if we want to do it, then what we're going to do is we're just going to do a little light pass. Just kind of lights and lightens up everything just a teensy weensy bit. Okay. And now you can see just lightens it up just a tiny bit more if you want. Doesn't have to be, don't have to do it if you don't want to do it. It's really good to kind of, like if you want to highlight, say, the spines up a little bit towards the tip, kind of like so. Now there's, I mean, you can just kind of do something like that. Okay. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all I did with that guy. I mean, you can kind of see that now they look pretty much the same. You know, the thing about this method to remember, the most important thing is that you just have to use successively lighter and lighter shades as you go up. Okay. And if you don't, then it's not going to look right. Okay. So just remember that and just keep on painting and keep it locked here. Russ plays games, and for more helpful paint tutorial stuff, smash that like button, hit subscribe, drop a comment below. let me know what you think of the series so far. Let me know if you'd like me to show off any other paint things. I don't really have much to do right now. I have a few other things that I could do. But, as we say, we will see you on the next one.